Hello and welcome to the 12th Annual Naples International Film Festival. My name is David Filner and I'm the Executive Vice President, Artistic Operations at Artis Naples. And on behalf of everyone at Artis Naples and the Naples International Film Festival, I'd like to thank you for joining us for this special TalkBack Q&A. We'd also like to thank our TalkBack Q&A sponsors, Stan and Saran Crosshar, for their support. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce one of the filmmakers from our Florida showcase, John Pendergraft. John, welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for including my film and having me.
Absolutely. So your film Cuts it's a powerful story. It's an important story. Can you tell us a little bit about how this came about, this film and this story that you found?
Yeah, we had looked into previously a few years ago a large series on the effect of budget cuts on mental health in Florida, particularly to state hospitals. And we found in an 18-month project that it led to extreme violence in state hospitals. But along the way, we discovered some things that we said we need to look into. And one of them was the Baker Act law, how it's applied, and some of the numbers. And in a nutshell, the Baker Act law allows or mandates that people who make an expression that is homicidal or suicidal be taken into custody for 72 hours. In the case of schools, the way that is applied is the vast majority of the time, those children are taken into custody by a law enforcement officer, by the school resource officer. And the problem the film highlights is the way the law is written, an officer must Baker Act if they hear that kind of an expression. So in this film, an autistic child on his first day of middle school, which sucks for everybody, gets frustrated and says, I just want to kill myself so nobody else will. And you hear the officer say, that's not good. And at that point, the officer doesn't have a choice. By law, he must take the kid. Now, a mental health professional by law must evaluate. So I guess the point that the film is making, well, a couple points. One is that's not the best way to determine whether or not to make a life-altering decision for a child with a disability. So the law is badly written. And I lost my second. As happens when you just kind of start talking.
Yeah, that's okay. So how did this specific child in this specific instance, how did you hear about it? How did you get involved in? And it's some powerful footage, and it seems like sort of body cam footage maybe from the officer involved.
There's body cam footage from the officer involved. This is a mother who had blogged. So first, we kind of got the data. We got the lay of the land and framed it as an investigative piece. And then we started working with advocacy groups, the Southern Poverty Law Center, local mental health rights groups. And through that kind of snowballing, we talked to this family and after I talked to her on the phone, I thought right away that this was somebody we'd at least want to talk about featuring. The other element in this movie is the approach we took, and that was in consultation with a Dr. Kristen Kozluk, who is a specialist in childhood trauma. We decided to pursue a form of art therapy and to let AJ, who's the middle schooler, be in control of his narrative. So we turned it over to him and we said, tell us what happened and animate it and draw it. And we said explicitly to the mother and to AJ, you will be in control of your story and how you tell it, and you will get to see it and approve it. And that in the end, they felt they felt empowered by the ability to tell their story. They felt like it did AJ good. And additionally, they felt very strongly that this is an issue that should get public attention. So,
yeah, they were amazingly powerful drawings, and that was in watching the film. One of the things that I certainly wondered about was how they came up, where there's something that, what was the process for him? Was he just drawing those things out? And it's good to know that was sort of part of a therapeutic process for him with that. Well, that's great. And how do you still keep in touch with AJ? How is he doing? Do you have any updates?
He's doing great. They changed schools completely without reservation, and holistically he's doing great. I'm in contact. In fact, Stacy, his mother, texted me a few days ago, and so we text each other once a week or once every maybe every 2 weeks or something like that. But they're doing great. She's been checking in how we're doing with COVID. Everybody's checking in on everybody. But he's actually in a much better situation. Has not been bankrupted subsequently. She did say that she took the film with her on her laptop, sat down with the principal and the SRO, and said, "This is our previous experience. Let's avoid this."
Yeah, I was going to say I was going to ask about if she's seen it, but clearly they haven't. It's good to know that they've used it. So do you are there other of these kinds of stories that you're looking for in future films? Or what do you look for, I guess, in future films, and how do you think about your next project?
Well, the goal of the film was, this was the second point, full circle, that the state law is written vaguely enough that every school district, and in practice, every school makes up their own policy. So the Miami School District has a notify parents policy, where Broward, these are counties in Florida, has a no notification, and it's just it's completely catch by can. There is no standard. So kind of in a lot of the studies we've seen where zip code matters for opportunity outcomes for kids and adults, definitely zip code matters, and where you are matters profoundly in Florida. And I think in most places where you are the parent of a child with a disability matters. And that there should be a standard. There should be, in particular, this family had an IEP, an individualized education plan, and the power, the validity, or the use of that plan just varies school to school, and there aren't standards. So the goal really was to fix the Baker Act law and to come up with a set standards that are well thought out. And a House bill went, state House bill went, it's House bill, went through the House, and they passed it unanimously. It went to the Senate and it got tabled and not voted on. And I think that's because it was right about the time that COVID hit, and a lot of things were tabled. I'd like to think it wasn't sort of a nefarious act, but it did pass unanimously in the House, which goes to your question. Yes, this work needs to continue. Schools are not in session right now, but certainly the mental health policies of the Baker Act aren't specific to schools. And so it's an open question exactly how we could frame follow-up work, but it's not a question that there will be follow-up work.
Okay. Well, thank you again so much for sharing this story, and something that I think a lot of those of us in Florida, I mean, I had no idea that such things were going on, and it really is an important topic to have brought up. So thanks again for sharing the film and for spending some time with us.
Okay, thank you.
It's my great pleasure to introduce the writer and director of the BREWCHURCH, Aaron Jose. Welcome.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
First of all, Aaron, where are you talking to us from? Somewhere in Florida, I think?
Yeah, so we are here in Orlando, which I'm in my home office right now. I've been here for a while. We're not at the main office for the time being until COVID kind of goes away.
Yeah.
And I'm actually a very short drive from the brewery that is covered in the film.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about how you ended up making this film. Were you looking for a subject, or did you know of the BREWCHURCH and kind of decide to make a film about that?
So it's kind of a two-step process for us. So we were at a beer festival a few years ago, and a local one here in Orlando, and the brewery, which is called Castle Church, they had won like the audience choice for the, you know, like the drinker's choice of the festival for favorite beer. And, you know, we realized while we were there that, well, they hadn't opened yet, but they were brewing and they were winning competitions. So that kind of got me curious to keep an eye on when they would open. And it just so happened that around that same time, I had started research and development on a feature documentary about minorities in the craft beer industry. Because I myself, I love drinking beer. My wife loves drinking beer. We tend to visit breweries everywhere we go, around the state, around the country, even internationally. And oftentimes we realize that we're among the only or the only people of color at breweries. Mm-hmm. So what struck me is the fact that Castle Church was down the street from my house. So I figured, well, let me go check them out. And it just so turned out that they put a church in a brewery, which is unusual because typically in the US, you have abandoned churches that are converted to breweries, but it's mostly for the aesthetic nature of doing so and not necessarily to have fellowship in that space. It's more just like what you could call maybe like a gimmick per se. But in this case, the reverse was done. They put the church community in the brewery. So that was interesting. So I just went to, as a patron, and realized that, you know, these were very friendly people, and they didn't, like they say in the film, try to convert me and say, hey, you know, we have service on Sundays and during the week if you guys want to come by. If not, that's fine. If you want to just sit and have beer and just hang out, that's fine too. Mm-hmm. So that's that kind of relaxed the nature of how they went about doing the two things simultaneously. I figured, you know, let me just do a short doc about them and to see where it goes.
So were they excited, interested? Were they just sort of accepting of when you approached them about actually doing a documentary? What was their feeling, you think, about?
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. They were excited. They were happy because, you know, the reality is too that, you know, the more this film gets out there, the more people learn about them. So, you know, if they're ever in town, they can go and visit and drink beer or go and be part of the Lutheran church and attend service. So in that sense, you know, they were very excited to participate. And, you know, it was very low pressure, you know, on both our parts. Is, hey, we're going to brew on such and such day. Come check us out. If you have any questions, let us know. If you have any questions about how our church community works, let us know. It was a very jovial experience.
Yeah. So with the brewery, do you find, how should I say, is the experience of drinking beer in that kind of environment, does that impact you personally, like that you know, the ambiance of the place?
Be a little more specific. So I mean, any brewery you go to, right, there has to be a vibe. You know, it has to look a certain way and feel a certain way. Yes, the beer has to be good, but it also has to have a certain vibe. And over there, their vibe tends to be, depending on when you go, right, what day of the week you go, is we have people that are just drinking beer. We have people that are there for the service, and then there are people that do both. So that's why, you know, I like to say that they love Jesus and beer. and typically, you know, if you're more, shall we say, conservative in nature, from, you know, from a Christian standpoint, you wouldn't necessarily mix the two, not in the same space, right?
Mhm.
You would go to service, and then maybe you go and have a drink afterwards, but
Yeah.
it's all in that same space. So that's kind of the vibe.
Yeah.
You know, they love Jesus and beer, and you know, they have this thing that they throw on social media a lot, where they where the pastor says, Jared, who's in the film, he says, too drinky for your church friends, too churchy for your drink friends. We have the, you know, the right place for you. So,
So have they, I assume they've seen the film, but
oh yeah, oh yeah.
do they utilize that in any way to sort of, I mean, explicit, I mean, you've said that if people who see it might be interested in that, but do they explicitly try to utilize it as a, you know, a marketing tool, I guess, for the church through their own processes?
That is a good question, because I've made the film available to them to use it however they want. So I'm assuming they have it to a degree.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's been at least lately, it's been a tough half year for any kind of establishment like that, you know,
Yeah.
that serves drinks and is involved, you know, F&B related. So, you know, anything they can do to help generate business is good. And now that the state has been reopened,
Yeah.
you know, everyone's going to slowly get back on their feet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually was one of my questions, was how have they been doing? I know that there are all sorts of rules for liquor about, you know, if you're a restaurant, you can do this, and if they're a bar, you can do this, but it's sort of a slightly unique situation with them, I would think.
Yeah, with them and any brewery in the state of Florida, they lately have been, they're being treated like a bar, whereas they're more like a restaurant, because they have to keep their spaces as clean as hospitals even,
Mhm.
because if they don't, that can affect their product that they're brewing, because some of that filth can get into the beer, and then it contaminates the barrels, and then you have thousands of dollars lost. So the breweries tend to be very clean spaces, and very much a space, you know, and if you go to any brewery, you'll notice dog friendly, family friendly. They close at a decent hour. They're not open till 2 a.m. You know, very careful about social distancing, because again, they care about, you know, sanitary precautions. But unfortunately, the folks that make the rules, right, in Tallahassee, didn't necessarily see it that way
Mhm.
for a while. So now finally, you know, things are being loose, well, have been completely blown up, right? Or blown out, blown open, so to speak.
Right.
So now they're slowly recovering and starting to regain some of that business, because for a while, this brewery and others around the state, they were relegated to just curbside pickup.
Mhm.
And then maybe some business inside or in the beer garden.
Mhm.
You know, it's been tough. It's been tough, but everyone's slowly recovering now.
Yeah. So, what about you? What are your future plans? I mean, you had said that you were working on a longer form documentary.
Yes. So we're currently, so let's say like concurrently starting the editing phase, as well as wrapping up principal photography on a feature documentary about minorities in the craft beer industry, and it's called One Pint at a Time.
Hmm.
And we hope to kind of enlighten audiences about kind of the plight of minorities in this industry, like the historical plight, because there's less than 1% of breweries in this country that are Black owned. That's just one, you know, staggering statistic. And there's close to 8,000 breweries between the ones that are open and the ones that are in planning that are in the, you know, that exist today.
Mhm.
So that's kind of one of the things that we're doing, is we're following a few, you know, the journeys of a few brewers that are trying to like leave their mark on the industry, a few minority brewers in different parts of the country. as well as give a historical overview of, craft beer and kind of where the place of minorities is in this industry. Because, if you go to breweries, it's very heavily white male dominated. So we kind of discuss the whys and how, and provide recommendations as to how the industry can and should change to be more inclusive and have better representation. Yeah. So that's the one project that we're hoping to release, I would say at the earliest, the end of next year, maybe early 2022. It just really depends on how the festival circuit is going. Mm-hmm. Because I appreciate being able to virtually discuss the project, but as a festival organizer and me as a filmmaker, you kind of want to be in person so you can just have a drink and talk and network, and that's something that I know the festivals miss, and definitely the filmmakers miss that part too. So we hope that next year we'll be able to have more face-to-face events again.
Well, as do we. It's
safely.
Yes, exactly. Well, we look forward to seeing that film, and we thank you so much for sharing the BREWCHURCH with us.
Thank you.
And I'm sure our audiences have appreciated it and will appreciate it. So thanks again.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
I'd now like to welcome from our Florida Film Shorts, the co-director of the film Delivery, Kenna Hornbrook. Kenna.
Hi. Thank you.
So your film it's in our Florida category, but it's also a student film, right?
Yes, that's correct. We base out of the University of Central Florida. We're a team of 16 students from there.
Excellent. And where are you actually talking to us right now? Are you in Florida right now?
I am at home in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is currently snowing.
Wow. Not snowing here, that's for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that. So it's always a stark difference when I go from school to home.
Well, Delivery, I think is a perfect, especially for a festival. It's the week before Halloween. It's kind of a perfect film.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about what inspired you and the rest of the team to create Delivery.
Well, so because it's a student film, we kind of went through the basic process of storytelling. That was one of our classes, was just the basis of storytelling. And so our first assignment was we were all supposed to come up with a couple ideas of what films we could do and the stories behind it and what that could turn into being one of our short films. And so what we did is, we all went home and we pitched really short, quick ideas. And so the original story that we started with and started to mold into what it is now was just a really basic tale of a mailman being afraid of a dog. And that's really what we started with. And so then we decided, okay, that could really turn into something cool. And we broke into our smaller groups of small teams, and we built it and built it and built it and kept kind of piling on ideas. We took ideas from another pitch of the aspect of the heaven and hell. We thought that was really great and put that into it. And then it also did happen to be around actually this time of year. It was probably mid-September, and then it went into October when we were building these ideas, and everybody loved the idea of Halloween, and so we thought it would be so much fun to make something that was a little bit more Halloween-esque, make it a little bit spooky, a little bit fun, and that's how we kind of built onto it. It really was just what our story creator Vicky, she says it was a bedtime or a nightstand table idea that she just kind of came up with, and we just built off from there.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how was the team that you worked on with this, was this something that you had control over, or was it sort of assigned through the class period?
Yeah, so we, as students, of course, we all started on the same level. I think that the leadership role specifically kind of emerged naturally. In my case, I'm the co-director, and that's just something I've always felt good about is my leadership skills. And I knew I was actually probably going to be a stronger leader than I would be an artist. And so when we were first kind of all getting together, and we decided which teams we were going to be on, we didn't know what who our leaders were going to be yet. That didn't happen actually until about 6 months later. So what was good about that is we were all on the same level in that sense, and we could all put in however many ideas and collaborative pieces as we wanted. And then it was in March that we voted on who we wanted as our official directors. Now, being a student film, I never felt like being a student director meant that I got more say than anybody else, because I was still learning as well. So me and my co-director, Chrissy, mostly our roles were just regulation, timing, calendar, you know, making sure that we were on schedule. And it was kind of our, one of our professors was very close with us, and she helped us make any. I wasn't as strong of a true artist as I was really a leader. And so when I needed somebody to put, you know, a final say on an art piece or something, I would actually turn to like my art directors or one of my other, you know, co-team members who I thought was stronger in that position. I would let them make the final decision. So again, we were all learning. So we were all kind of on the same level, and directors, we, as leaders, we just kind of helped regulate, kept us on schedule, which was very necessary, of course.
So what do you think was the biggest thing you learned, whether about filmmaking or just life in general, I guess?
Oh my goodness. I would just say just how long the process takes. I had known beforehand, you know, that you're looking at 5 years when making a feature-length film. Which is crazy to really understand until you're in it and you realize, oh my gosh, it took us 2 years to make a 5-minute film. And that was with a team of 16. So really it was just, we needed every pair of hands that we possibly could at all times of the day. You know, we were working sometimes 70-hour weeks to get this where we needed it and wanted it to be. So yeah, it was just the whole process of really everything that's involved. You don't realize that with animation, when you see something on screen, everything had to be created. Everything that you see, there was a decision made on that. Versus if you're doing a live action, sometimes a set is made in the background and like you just, that's just where it's set. You can't control what that looks like. You can control a little bit of the lighting and composition and stuff like that, but not as much as you can with animation. So with animation, it's absolutely everything has to be decided on. And it's funny, of course, when you see a short film, because then all of those decisions are only put into a short 5 minutes when you spent so many hours slaving away making the decision.
So have you, your focus is on animated filmmaking
Yes.
in school?
Mm-hmm.
And why animated filmmaking versus live action?
For me personally, I've just always had a passion specifically for animation. I absolutely love art. I've been a born artist, and so we started I just knew that I wanted to do art of some kind when I was growing up, and realized that I loved film as well, and I wanted to go to college for something that I didn't necessarily already know how to do, like I did with just general art. I was like, you know, I think I really want to do something bigger. And I watched, you know, a couple of animated films, and I was like, you know what, that's what I want to do. That's what I really want to focus on, because I would love to incorporate the aspect of storytelling, which I think is so powerful and so much fun. And, you know, it just touches everybody, and it's an entertainment for everybody. It kind of gets to pull everybody out of the reality for however long it is, which is why I just love storytelling. And then I get to add art on top of it. And so being able to do that and create, you know, the cartoon aspect and all that fun stuff, I just thought that that was one of the most incredible things. So yeah, I left snowy Minnesota and went down to sunny Florida, and I had no regrets there.
Well, congratulations on this film. But what are your next projects, or another film coming in 2 more years of
Yeah. Well, we had all graduated, so this film was our senior project, and so we just graduated as much as you can in the year 2020 back in May. And so we're still submitting it to festivals and we're still getting feedback on it, which is amazing. And everybody's kind of gone their separate ways, starting to get into the professional industry, which has been really, really fun to watch. But it's still cool to think that this, it seems so long ago, of course, with everything else that's happened this year too. It seems like March and April, May was years ago. But with all of that we were going through then, it's still fun to see that this film is still receiving feedback and still receiving views and compliments this much later. And our previous seniors and years past films, same thing. It's been years and they're still getting into festivals and they're still receiving views and everything. So it's fun to see how long this is going to go.
Yeah. Well, congratulations again on a really wonderful film.
Thank you.
And it's, like I said, it's a lot of fun to have it right before Halloween. So
yes.
Thanks for sharing it and best of luck in the future.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I'd now like to welcome the director of the Long Haul 100 from our Florida Films Showcase, Christina Rossetti. Welcome, Christina.
Hi, thank you.
So thanks, first of all, for sharing your film. Can you, just to start out with, can you tell us a little bit about how you came up with this film, how you met this this really amazing woman who's running 100 miles?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us here, hosting the film. Really appreciate the selection to be a part of your festival. Yeah, so I'm an amateur filmmaker myself. I am very much into the outdoors, and as we see with Katie, she's an amateur runner herself. And so we kind of float in similar circles, and we met one day at the climbing gym, and she told me what she was getting into with this 100-mile race, and I just knew I wanted it to be a part of it and wanted to film it in her training journey and then the race itself. So we have a lot of similar interests, and we kind of just hit it off with a good fit for filming this achievement.
Yeah. So you said that this is, I believe, is this your first sort of real film that you've done?
Yes, this is my first festival piece for sure.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. Are there any things that you experienced in sort of making this film? What I imagine was at least a little bit of a struggle to make this film with Katie and her 100-mile run?
Yeah, absolutely. There were quite a few production challenges. With the training portion of it, it wasn't as challenging. We kind of had some fun just tagging along for her races in various places around the state. But then, yeah, when it came to filming this race, we had quite a few production challenges with lighting the tent at night, but then also just like filming for the full duration of the race, which ended up being about 30 hours of filming, and then tear down and setup. Production ended up being awake for about 40 hours to capture the race. So it was definitely a challenging first film project. But like I said, I'm very much into the outdoors and kind of roughing it with this type 2 fun. So it was a blast to overcome those production challenges.
Yeah. So when you found her in this story, were you looking for a film to do, or did you just sort of say, oh, this is an amazing story, I should make a film out of this?
I definitely was looking for a film, and I'm always kind of looking for little projects here and there. But I was searching for a film, and being so close to the wilderness here in Florida, we have access to quite a few amazing parks, and so my interests and her race kind of really lined up for the type of film that I was looking for, and yeah, so we kind of hit it off right away.
Yeah. So Florida, I mean, it's not known certainly as much as like, Hollywood, or even like, I think Georgia has become a big filmmaking place recently. What does it mean to you to be a filmmaker in Florida making a film that takes place in Florida?
Definitely. I love this question. I have done my fair share of traveling. I've gone out west, and I've seen some really spectacular bits of nature, that's for sure. But I was born and raised in Florida, and it's truly, it's an important place to me. And so I think with looking for a film, telling a story that's similar to my own, telling a story that's rooted here in the state of Florida was important to me, as well as access. You know, I can't talk about, you know, wanting to go out to Hollywood if I don't have the funds for it. So, you know, I think looking right here at home and kind of looking for a project that was something that was attainable was really important to me. And so, you know, I wanted to start right here at home with my home state of Florida. Yeah.
So this story, as we touched base earlier, it's really about, you know, her challenge of getting through this race. There's always, it seems from a viewer standpoint, there's always this, I don't know, consideration of how much does having a camera and knowing that you're on film, on a film that's theoretically going to go out into the world, impact the actual story that's going on? Do you think that the fact that you were there trying to make this movie impacted her ability to finish, or do you think it was did she sort of, tone it out and not really think about that?
I think there's two parts to this question. You know, I think definitely having a camera there absolutely impacts the story and the narrative and everything that might organically happen. So I definitely think, yes, it impacted her ability to finish, but at the same time, I know for sure that this athlete, that Katie, had the ability to finish this race all on her own. But I was also pacing with her a lot throughout the race, you know, so I was kind of helping her through it. And so part of me kind of wonders how much impact it really had on the race itself. But I do know that she is fully capable athlete who I knew was going to be able to pull out the race finish, whether we were there or not. But I definitely think it was a bit unique for her to have us filming the process.
So when you say pacing, were you actually like people running along with her on the trail for portions?
Yeah, so after the 60-mile mark is when this specific race allows pacers to be introduced. And so, yes, for the last 40 miles or so, we were actually allowed to be out on the course with her. So we were pacing and filming, which is kind of a fun little 2-for-1.
Double duty, that's great.
Yeah.
So what can you fill us in on what's going on with Katie after this race? Has she continued to do other races? Continue to run, I assume?
Yes, she has definitely been up to her running ways this COVID year. Unfortunately, a lot of the races have been postponed or pushed back due to COVID. So she's been doing a lot more on her own. She had a race scheduled in Colorado to do a 50, I believe it was a 50-miler out in Colorado, which was going to be her first mountain ultra. Unfortunately, she's been dealing with a knee injury this last couple months, so she ended up not doing that one, but she is signed up for the long haul again in 2021. So she does plan to run that again and is aiming to get an under 24-hour finish. So we'll see how that goes.
Great. And how about you and your filmmaking? Do you have projects in the works, things that you're working on, thinking about for future?
Yeah, I'm kind of in that similar looking for another project type window here. I don't have anything I'm actively working towards right now, but I'm definitely doing the researching portion of a few different projects I'm looking to continue with.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing this film with us. It really is a great portrait of determination, and you do a wonderful job of telling that story in such a sort of a visceral way. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.